Hey, what's up, guys? Ken here from Retro Comic Escapades. We're back on lockdown here in Malaysia, and I hope that everyone out there is doing good and staying healthy. So, this is episode 7 of the Collecting Comics video podcast series. I know that the title is kind of a mouthful. The ROM comics of the 1980s are far better than you remember them to be. But I was thinking about what I wanted the video to express, and that's basically it. So the spotlight is on the ROM comics from back in the day, and I actually brought a whole bunch of these books in for sale on the Retro Comic Escapades Facebook page at one point. At the time, I was generally looking at cool sci-fi books from the 1970s and 80s that customers would be interested in. But I never actually read any of the books myself. Until now, that is. Now, on some of these later issues, you had big names like Bill Sienkiewicz contributing to the covers, and that really elevated the experience if you were a fan of the series. Even if you didn't know anything about the character, there's definitely something about these dark and moody covers, especially in the early 80s. Stuff like this would definitely pull you in just out of curiosity. Now, ROM as a character didn't actually start as a comic book character, but as an action figure from Parker Brothers. If you look at the pictures of the original toy online, it looks pretty terrible. I mean, I like it as a retro toy because I like mostly all things that are retro and vintage, but a lot of people didn't, and the toy failed. But the comic book series that was being published concurrently didn't. Okay, in fact, over 70 issues were published, and these books, as it turned out, really expanded the ROM universe. Now, what is ROM supposed to be actually? The simplest way to describe him would be as some kind of space Robocop, an interplanetary officer that keeps the peace. You could also think of him as maybe a cyborg Green Lantern. But ROM's main mission is primarily to rid the universe of these evil aliens called the Dire Wraiths. Now, on today's episode, I'm checking out this one particular issue that I had in the stash that sort of just pulled me in and made me want to read it just by looking at the cover. Now, that would be issue 52, published in 1984. If you looked at it, it comes with another show-stopping cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. Actually, this looks like something from the Dune movie, which also came out the same year, and Bill Sienkiewicz was actually the artist for the comics adaptation of that movie. Now you see the screaming words at the bottom, total war, and this image of such despair and hopelessness. Now I know that there's probably more than a few Bill Sienkiewicz fans out there listening into this, so do leave a comment and let me know what some of your favorite Bill Sienkiewicz covers have been. Now when you turn the cover, the first thing that you see are these cool Masters of the Universe toys, the Talon Fighter and the Attack Track model kits from Monogram. Now this is some seriously rare shit, and definitely a product of the 80s. Okay, on the first page, you see this bunch of fat and bloated Dire Wraiths all huddled together and discussing their plans of death and destruction. At the bottom, one of the Wraiths ends the scene by proclaiming, "We will turn Earth into a graveyard as we wage against ROM." And then you turn the page, and then you get this sprawling sequence, total war. Or should I say, total war? That's probably how the Wraiths would scream it out. But looking at this thing just took me by surprise, man. Now, I didn't expect such storytelling innovation in how the title fonts would be presented to the reader, especially from a book from that early era. Now, this art is by Buscema, by the way, who I was never really a big fan of, but now I'm seeing some of the genius in his work. You see how inside each font, you get the connecting images of the war and the horror that the Wraiths are bringing to Earth. Now, what you're seeing here is something totally cinematic. And I especially like how you get what the book cover promised. Now, it said Total War on the cover, and they're giving you Total War right at the start, and even spelling it out for you. But the way that this thing was presented, I have to say that it's got to be the influence from the movies at the time, which I also think is interesting because these days a lot of movie content is being influenced by what is popular in comics and how comics present their scenes and storytelling style to audiences. But you see how in those early days, movies or motion pictures were the more dominant force in entertainment, and their influence can be seen when you get an opening spread to a book like this. That's right. I think that all comic books should have a cinematic style opening. Okay, I mean, there's so many times that the creator gets it wrong in how they set up a scene of conflict, but this issue shows you just how to do it right. Even when you get a scene like this, when you turn the page and check out this scene of all out carnage. Now, this is how you present a conflict to the reader. You know what? There's actually two ads for Masters of the Universe in the same book. Okay, anyway, reading this issue gave me some newfound respect for the ROM character. I can definitely see how, despite being a character that hardly anyone follows or even reads, he still has a dedicated cult following that lasts until today, thanks to a rich archive of legacy issues such as this that treated the character with great care and respect. Anytime you see a comic book presented to the reader with as much quality as this one, you know that it's being done by people who really care. Now, ROM today has a new life with IDW Comics and Hasbro, and the character has crossed over in other comic book stories featuring Hasbro properties like Transformers, Mask, G.I. Joe, and Visionaries. And it seems positioned to be a character who will always find his way back in any generation. That's it from me, guys. Thank you.